had here. So are they bonus marks if we do them right? Michelle, no. They're bonus marks if you learn how to do them and you won't suffer next year. Okay, so I'm not going to mark it, but I want you to do it. I may change my mind. I may include that, but I don't want to give bonus marks. It's something that should be part and parcel of it. Just like I'm not counting spelling and grammar, I'm not going to give you a mark for it, but you have to learn how to do it. If I find that you don't want to do them, then I might change my mind. No, just do them, please. Now, either footnotes or endnotes. Footnotes or endnotes, you choose which one you want to do. Maybe I should include a marks for it. I might. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to think about your question. I might add an extra 5 marks for it in footnotes, endnotes, and proper essay format. I'll think about that. Okay. Right now, no, but I might change my mind. We have to source info we got from the course, right? Like what Aristotle said. Yeah. So what I want you to do is, if it's a source from a handout that I gave you, then you tell me this, like Aristotle's ethics, or Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics, and tell me what sections of it is. And then I'm going to make a title for my package of stuff. So the handout will be in quotation marks, and my package will be underlined. So it's like a book that I created. Okay, but it won't have any copyright, and it won't have any publishing company. Okay, but at least you should have the article's title. I know where it's from. You know where it's from, and it's recognized there. Okay, so so if you use a textbook, there's all information there on a textbook. If you use Martin Luther King Jr., you have the internet citation, and you just copy and paste it. And if it's a handout from the package I gave you that's not from the textbook, then you put the title down, like Nicomachean Ethics, section 2.5, whatever, or character, cycle, and then that's all. You don't have to have a page there. I know what it is. I want you to learn how to do this, because if you don't, your university career will be short. They'll kick you out of the university if you don't source things. You won't survive. Okay. Let's see. James, we have to source the info we got from the course, right? Like what Aristotle says about Kurt. If you want to use that, Aristotle, good. If you want to use Aquinas, that's good. If you want to use Levinus, that's good. If you want to use something from the textbook, that's good as well. So whatever you use, you source it. It's good practice. Ben, are the footnotes for each idea? Yes. So you'll have each part of your essay will have at least 2 footnotes. One is the idea of justice, where you got it from, and who you got it from, and one, Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter. What does he say about justice? So you'll have at least 2 footnotes for each section. Okay. And I was explaining beforehand. If you follow the outline I gave you, you should do well. Now, the body, justice, love, and utility will have, there's 3 sections, 3 parts of your body. Each of them will have 5 paragraphs. 5 paragraphs for justice, 5 paragraphs for love, 5 paragraphs for humility. Each paragraph will have a sentence about an idea of a philosopher or someone. We'll have something from Martin Luther King Jr., second sentence. And third or fourth sentence will be your explanation as to why what Martin Luther King Jr. says relates to the idea, and then eventually relates to Micah, the idea of justice. Okay. The last section, which is your conclusion, has a built-in reflection. What did you get out of it? What did you learn about living with by acting justly and loving tenderly and walking humbly? And that's the whole point of the course. Michelle, so you no, say no embedded citations. No embedded citations. It has to, that's the MLA format. I want the APA format. It has to be at the bottom of the page or the end of the page. Embedding is nice for English teachers, but what happens is it takes away from the flow of writing and the flow of your reading of your writing because it interrupts. All you should have is a number, and then you look out of the bottom, that number represents this reference, okay, this source. Proper for, do we have to label the intro point 1, 2, 3? Michelle, no, you don't have to label. If you want to, you can label introduction, body, and titles. That makes it easier to follow. And that's the whole purpose of having the roadmap in introduction. These are going to be my three arguments, three body parts. And if you want to put a label, it makes it easier for you to write it, to see you have everything, and easier for me to read it. But otherwise, you don't have to have like a justice A, B, C, D, E, F. But you can label part A of your body, which would be justice, and part B, love, and part C, humility. Okay, so that's a good idea. If you want to do it, you can do it. It helps with the organization. I've seen lots of essays, and I've done lots of essays like that as well, where I have labeled it to help the reader follow along your arguments. But you don't have to. But if you want to, you're welcome to do so if it helps. Okay. Any other questions? About a minute before we have our lockdown, so we're going to go silent, and then we'll have the PowerPoint presentation, and then after the PowerPoint presentation, we'll have a quick review for the test. Part of have a little review in the PowerPoint presentation on the things we talked about yesterday. You have 2 homework assignments for tomorrow. Veritas Splendor from Pope John Paul II, and an assignment from the book about the other. So those are for homework. I'll take them up tomorrow with another PowerPoint presentation. And then I gave you a journal, Pope John Paul II's definition of what hell is. It's not what you expect. Okay, it's an article by a professor whom I know from Waterloo. Okay, so I'll talk to you in a few minutes.
This is Mr. Servideo, Principal, St. Robert Catholic High School. We are now in the hold and secure procedure.
I'll answer your question when I come back. Okay?
We are now going into a hold and secure procedure. Once again, we are now going into a hold and secure procedure.
Okay, I'm going to turn this off for a while. That I'm going to
Please pardon this interruption. Once again, this is Mr. Savidio, Principal, St. Robert Catholic High School. The building is now secure. I repeat, the building is now secure. Classes may resume their normal activities. Thank you.
Is it going? There it goes. You guys okay with this? Hold it. Keep it cold. Keep it on. Hold it. Watch it. The cold's on. Okay. Let's just check attendance. See if we have. I'll take a few questions. Okay, thank you, Oliver, for joining us. Okay. Any other questions? We'll spend more time talking about your CPT. I don't know who you are. I just excluded somebody. Who is this? Outside, not allowed. Didn't recognize that, so I don't know who was trying to get in here. Let's see if they do the third time. Okay, so let's do a PowerPoint presentation of today's homework, and then I'll talk about your journal. I'll give you some ideas of what he's talking about, and then we'll take about 5 minutes to prepare for the test, and then I'm going to email everyone the test. It should take you about 15 minutes to do, 15, 20, but I'll give extra time for those who need it. Okay, present. Okay, here we go. So my clarification on St. Thomas Aquinas. Try to summarize everything in that package in a nice, easy way to understand. Okay. So natural moral law. When you carry out acts of kindness, and we saw this yesterday with transitive and intransitive effects, you get a wonderful feeling inside. It is as though something inside your body responds and says, yes, this is how I ought to feel. What happened is you discovered that you're a good person. And this is what we mean by natural law, something that God has put inside of us. So I have this cartoon by Peanuts by Charles Schultz. I'm intrigued by this view you have on the purpose of life, Charlie Brown. You say, we're put here on earth to make others happy. That's right, says Charlie Brown. Lucy says, what are the others put here for? Just to get you interested, get your mind focused on what we're talking about. Kind of like this cartoon. Purpose of humans based on Aristotle ideas. So St. Thomas Aquinas gets his ideas from Aristotle. So we say that Aquinas is Aristotle plus the Christian idea of God. So he puts God into Aristotle. He applies Aristotle's ideas and makes them Christian. So based on Aristotle's idea of the good being that which fulfills the purpose for which it was created, Aquinas believed it was necessary to establish the purpose for which humans were created by God. So why did God create us? And the simple answer is love. So we have the difference between God's law, the eternal law of God, the law of the kingdom of God, and then divine or revealed law, which is scripture. So we have a picture here of Moses on Mount Sinai, and Mount Sinai event gives us God's commandments. So for the first one, eternal law, we are designed to say yes to God, to return to God from which we came. So we come from God and we are to return to God. How do you do that? God told us the Ten Commandments. The first three commandments are love God. If you love God, you only have one God, you respect God's name, and you spend some time with God in prayer. That's the first great commandment, which is to love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. The second great commandment is the next 7 commandments, which are love your neighbor as yourself. Your first neighbor is or are your parents. So you love and honor your parents. Then with your parents and everybody else in the world, if you love them, you don't kill them, you don't lie to them, you don't steal from them, you don't fool around, which is adultery, and you don't want, covet, or desire anything that belongs to your neighbor, whether it be the relationship, their spouse, or the property. So those are the Ten Commandments, summarized in 2 commandments: love God and love your neighbor. Okay. Now we also have what's called the law of nature. God created the universe for us. We're the last to be created, and nature follows certain laws. We call them laws of nature. Things like gravity, thermodynamics, uh, photons, neutrons, electrons, atoms, etc. So at St. Rob's, you're learning about, when you study science, you're really learning about God's creation, the laws, and how to understand them and how to use them. And then you have the use of reason, which is natural law. So with our intellect and with our will, God enables us, unlike all other animals, to understand not only the laws of nature, but God's laws as revealed through scriptures. And this is where we're going to locate ourselves in this article under natural law, the reason. And then from all that, laws of nature, God's revealed law, scriptures, and natural law of reason, we have human laws or civil laws, where we codify them make them part of society. Inspired by the religious, but now moving towards non-religious. So the reason why there are three categories of homicide in the criminal code: first degree murder, second degree murder, and third degree murder. First degree is when you kill someone like the leader of a country, that's sedition and treasonable. Then you have and then you have premeditated murder, and then you have murder of emotions, manslaughter. So those are inspired by the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," found in the Ten Commandments of Mount Sinai that God gave Moses. So those are the relationships between them. So natural laws are prescriptive. They tell us how we ought to live. In this sense, they are unlike physical laws, aka laws of nature, example gravitation, which tell us how things do in fact behave and are therefore descriptive. Unlike rocks, we are always at liberty to disobey the natural laws that pertain to us. This is how we sin. So you have a little cartoon about Isaac Newton trying to figure out things, and you see in the left-hand corner, Isaac Newton is trying to figure out things. And have you got anything? The other guy says, wondering if Newton has anything, and he has nothing right now, until that apple hits him in the head. And so it says that he discovered the law of gravity. That you can't disobey gravity. If you jump in the air, you're going to come back on the ground. Unless, of course, you go to space where the gravity is less, so you can float around. Then you're be pulled by some other object, like the moon. But when it comes to prescriptive laws of natural law, you can say yes or you can say no. Because you have intellect and you have will. You can reason and you can choose. Humans are rational, moral. We have a human nature, fact. We are distinctive in being able to reason about our actions. So Homer is not like the bumblebee, the teddy bear, the bird, the parakeet, the penguin, or the fish. They're on the level of appetites, desires. But even Homer can think and he can choose intellect and will. Humans are singularly rational and therefore moral. In your actions, you become moral. Acting morally according to reason is to be fully human. Use your reason to work out what you should do. Think before you act. In a way, that agrees with your human nature. Natural laws fulfilling your human nature according to reason. But God designed you to think and to choose. And when you don't think and you choose, you become an animal and you act viciously, according to the vices. When you act according to reason, using intellect and will to make your choices, and you act like a human being, the way God designed you to be, and therefore you will act virtually. In natural law, the rational ordering of a natural inclination. Natural inclinations are such things as food, shelter, law, and order, reproduction, which people innately desire for living. Unlike animals, as Thomas says, though, human beings have reason and so are capable of directing their inclination to establish a moral code. Aquinas believed the universe was created by God so that everything has a design and a purpose. This can be understood through a study of the natural world, natural revelation, a study of the Bible, special revelation. Humanity was given reason and freedom so they may choose to follow good. This fulfills God's purpose for them. Aquinas' terminology of natural law means the rational understanding following of God's final purpose for humanity. And in simple terms, it's to do good and avoid evil. So a moral life is a life lived according to and in accordance with reason. Be good and avoid evil, be virtuous. An immoral life is a life lived at odds with reason, and you're enslaved by the non-natural and non-rational desires. That's what it means to be vicious. Okay, so moral life is virtuous, follows the virtues, and an immoral life is vicious, leads a life of the vices. Prudence, we're going to be talking about natural law. is a virtue that disposes practical reason to discern our true good in every circumstance and to choose the right means of achieving it. Prudence is exercising practical wisdom and knowledge to accomplish what is good, enable one to reason and to act rightly in any given situation. Make good choices, make virtuous choices. Uh, Aquinas says that there are 5 important precepts for human beings. The first one is self-preservation. That's the most important. You have to be alive. And of all the commandments, thou shalt not kill is probably the most important. And it's the most important right you have. Because all the other rights and all the other commandments have to deal with having a living person live. And so therefore, life is the supreme good as the basis for other goods. If you're not alive, you have no legal rights. You have no association rights because you're not there. So thou shalt not kill, in a positive sense, is thou shalt let live. And living is not simply being alive, but living safely, living healthy. So associated with life is bare necessities of shelter, of nourishment. So life is the most important thing, most important precept or rule that must always be preserved. Because if you're not alive, you have no other rights at all, nothing else. The second one is you have a right to reproduce. Reproduction would ensure the continuation of the human species. And in Alberta, about 40, 50 years ago, they started sterilizing people that were intellectually challenged, not too smart, had low IQs. And the idea is called eugenics, that because they're so, and I'll use some really bad language, dumb and stupid, you don't want to make more dumb and stupid children. So they sterilize them without their knowledge, which totally destroyed their natural right of reproduction. The third one is educating offspring. Education makes it possible for people to become independent fully, adults. And that's the most special gift that your parents have given you after life and after allowing you to mature is opportunity in education, because that's where you can become free to make your own choices, become independent and autonomous. So the right to educating your children and by association, our right to education is so foundational to who you are as a human person. And this is why it should be free. When I was a student teacher here at St. Rob's 36 years ago, grade 11, 12, and those days, grade 13 as a 5-year high school was not free. You had to pay a tuition fee to come to St. Rob's. Cardinal Carter, the Cardinal of the Archdiocese of Toronto, made a deal with Bill Davis, the Premier of Ontario, to fully fund Catholic schools. About 30 years ago, I think it was, or more. I don't remember the year now. And so grade 11, 12, and 13 became free for St. Rob students and for all Catholic students. It was a matter of justice. University should be free. College should be free. Those who can't afford it, we have OSAP. Temporarily, it's free, but eventually you have to pay back. It's hopefully that when you graduate, you'll make more money than you did if you didn't have a university degree, and you'll have money to pay back and to live a good life. Fourth one is to live with others in society. Law and order would ensure that justice is upheld and individuals are able to interact without fear of oppression. The fifth precept is to worship God the way you want to worship according to your understanding of what God is, if you want to choose. No one's going to force it on you. So worshiping the creator and sustainer of the world and humanity offers fulfillment and love. So humans never choose evil. Sometimes they choose apparent goods, which are in fact bad. I'll pass on to this right now. I'll come back to that in a second. The cardinal virtues we've already talked about: faith, hope, and love. And prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance are the cardinal virtues. And sin means to miss your mark. We talked about this with Percier, an archer. Now, I said earlier that our purpose in life is to love God and love your neighbor. When you don't love God and when you don't love your neighbor, you miss the mark. So with one hand, reach out to God and love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. If you start worshiping other gods like money, power, and sex, you miss the mark. That's it. You break up your relationship with God and you deny God exists, and you don't care. Now, with the other hand, you reach out to your neighbor. You honor and respect your parents. You don't kill, you don't lie, you don't steal, you don't fool around, and you don't want anything that belongs to your neighbor. When you don't do that, when you don't act selflessly for your neighbor, then you miss the mark. It's sin. The only person you do love is yourself. So selfishness, whether by not loving God and not loving your neighbor, is what Pope John Paul II talks about as hell. If the only person you love is yourself, then the only person that's important is yourself, then that's what hell is. You're choosing to be by yourself eternally. You bought yourself in. Total alienation from everybody else. And as a result, you got your wish. On the other hand, if you reconcile with God and reconcile with others, then you love others and you love God, then that's what heaven is. Eternally with God and everyone else. Okay, and I'll demonstrate that with a diagram at the end of the presentation. Okay, this is for your review for your test, especially for students who had some questions. And this is important. This is why we talked about the moral object, the intention, the circumstances. So this is going to help you if you use this for your test. Okay. So moral object is the specific thing the person is choosing to do, what we do. The intention is the motive, purpose, or aim, objective, or end of an action. Answers the question, why did you do it? So what did you do? Why did you do it? And then, are there any circumstances or conditions that affected you, influenced you? And as Michelle pointed out yesterday, it's very similar to the idea of intention, but in a second sense rather than the first sense of intention. Okay? A secondary or third way of thinking of it. It's the circumstances or the intention of the intention. Something else that will help us understand why you were doing it. Okay? So the conditions or facts attending an event and having some bearing on it, some influence bearing on it, can increase or decrease the moral goodness or evil of an action. Okay, now we understand. It's not all you, it's the pressure you put on. So if someone's cheating, the pressure your parents put on, the parents your community put on, the pressure on your chats, your WeChats, your Twitter chats, your Facebook chats, what I call that. So the pressure that's being put on externally, and there's pressure on them too. There might be pressure on your parents, pressure on your friends, and that all comes to play on you as well. Answers the question that begin with who, where, when, and how. Okay? So the intention is the why, and then the effect of who, where, when, and how on the why, which causes you to do what you do. Okay, so those three things. So on your test, you're going to have to explain the moral object, the intention, and the circumstances. Now, as long as you explain why you chose it, there's no way you can get it wrong unless you leave it blank. Okay, so relax, enjoy. Okay, questions? Yes. For this test, you can incorporate the definitions in your answer, but I'm not specifically asking you for it. But in your explanation, yes, by all means, include that as part of your justification for writing it down. You can never go wrong with explaining things and using definitions. It's just supporting your answer. Okay. So now we're going to go back to this apparent goods and real goods. Okay. So we all know the story of why did the chicken cross the road? So the chicken says, just once I'd like to cross the road without anyone questioning my motives. So the answer is to get to the other side of the road. So why do you want to get to the other road? Why should I answer that? Okay. So in this case, crossing the road is the action. Why? And what circumstances are behind it? Okay. Just a nice little cute thing that might intrigue you. Apparent and real goods. Okay, there's a list of things here. They're all good. How much good, how long-lasting good, how real they are, how important they are, might be different. So which are apparent goods and which are real goods? It's for you to figure out. It depends on what value you put on it, how much importance you put on it. What you involve your life, your effort, your work towards. Before I go through them, if you can think back at the first medal trophy you ever got in kindergarten, grade 1, 2, or 3. Let's say you got a little medal or a small little trophy. And that was huge for you. First time you ever get a reward for an effort of yours. And you took it home with you and you showed it off to everybody. And to make sure nobody stole it, you put it under your pillow. You slept with it. And you polished it. And you polished it, cleaned it, you took care of it, and you made sure it was protected. And then you put it on a shelf to show off. And then you got another medal, another trophy was a bit bigger. Another one, another one. And you forgot about that first medal that you received. The first time you got it, it was huge. And then it became not important. And if you ever go back to look at that medal, it looks so small now because it's not important because you moved on, got bigger, better things. But at the time, it was apparently incredible. But now it's not as important. Have you ever visited your elementary school in the last 4 years? You may have noticed that everything seems smaller. The teachers seem smaller because you've grown taller. The classrooms seem smaller. The tennis balls are still underneath the chairs and the tables. But everything seems to have shrunk. Because at the time, everything was big for you. You were smaller. Now you've grown up, more mature. Okay? So pursuing wealth. Wealth is important. You need to live. You need to buy things. How much wealth is important? Is that the only thing you think of making money? You spend 18 hours a day making money and don't live your life. So it is a good, but it's an apparent good, something outside of you, not as important as what's inside of you. Okay, Denzel Washington says, and I'll show you at the end of the course, you have never seen a U-Haul in a funeral procession. When someone dies, everybody goes to the funeral. But you never see a U-Haul. What's a U-Haul? It's a little trailer where you put all the belongings. You can't take it with you. At the time, it's so important. Okay? Gambling. Some people get addicted. That's all they care about. Winning, winning, winning. And when they don't win, they keep gambling. For them, it's good. It's entertainment. My mom plays lotteries every day. Pick 3, pick 4, 649, Lotario. Okay? She says, it's a form of entertainment. I don't spend much, $2, $3 a day. She's 87 years old. She likes to have some fun. But people play other games. It's entertainment. But it can become an obsession. A good meal. You need a nutritious meal. But then what kind of meal do you eat? How much do you eat? You can have moderation what you eat, and you can go to the other side, gluttony, overindulge yourself. Friendship, real friendship or a friendship of utility and pleasure. Satisfying work, you're happy doing it. But you get consumed by work sometimes, and it's all you ever do. While outside, you may have fun, party, but next morning you gotta wake up. Honor, prizes, promotions. We talked about that. Creating art, relaxing in front of TV. So, how important is it? How valuable is it? And how much of it? And is it really how you define yourself? It's like the most important thing in your life, to exclusion of everything else. Now, interior acts and exterior acts are both important. Now, interior acts are your intentions we're talking about, and exterior acts are your actions. So, for Aquinas, both the intention and the act are important. To act in a good way for the wrong reason is to perform a good exterior act, but a bad interior act. It's not acceptable to do a bad act for a good result. Example, consequences, i.e., consequences are not what matter overall. It's not acceptable to do a good act for a bad motive, i.e., the act by itself is not enough. Okay, so you need good actions and good intentions. So here we are on the left side, a young girl helping a senior cross the road. That's a good act. But if you're doing it for a pat on the back, we recognize if you're recording this for YouTube to get lots of hits to show what a nice person you are, then you have a bad intention. And that doesn't justify the good intention. Then you're using that senior for your own good rather than doing it for the good of the senior. If you were old, you'd want someone to help you around if you were struggling. But you also would want to be treated with dignity as a person, as Immanuel Kant's two maxims. For Aquinas, both are important. You can't have one without the other. Over here, someone's stealing to give money to a friend. Stealing is bad. To help a friend is good. The end result is you're helping a friend, but you're stealing from someone. So the action, the moral object is bad, even if the intention is good. So in both those situations, you have to have a good moral object or action and a good intention, a reason. Otherwise, you're using the other for a bad effect on you, or the bad effect on the other for a good effect for someone else. Okay. Aquinas. This is sort of summarize everything we've talked about in this presentation. Natural law is what is naturally right or wrong. It isn't just revealed through religion or scripture. It is hardwired into the hearts and minds of all human beings by God. Everyone's conscience should naturally tell them right from wrong. It's a matter of listening to it. Reason, which is the ability to think, and which is intellect, and the ability to choose, which is will or free will, helps us discover God's truth. Religion should not be irrational. It's not based on simply faith alone. Religion should also include reason. There is no conflict between reason and true religion or faith. And Pope John Paul II says that in life, you need faith and reason, like two wings of a bird in order to fly. Okay, so Let's try this again. Give me a second to fix my screen here. Okay, so first I'll take any questions from the class on the PowerPoint presentation. Anyone? Okay, any questions from our online students? Then I'll catch up on the questions you had here. I think what I'm going to do it on Friday. I looked over what I want to do with it, and it's just the same idea as one story, and then talk about culture of life. I thought we'd rather do it practice have all the notes, so my test might be hard to. You have all the notes, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. I realize I want to get them by Friday because I want to have a long weekend and enjoy the Thanksgiving with the family and everything else. And not have to worry about it. If I start putting the test on Wednesday, you're gonna worry about it over the weekend. If you get out of the way, it's very easy. Have all the notes in front of you, just a matter of time you can do it. It's same thing, you do a story, and it'll be if this happens, how does this show the culture of death, which is secularism, so materialistic, competitive, etc., or culture of life, which is life and respect and love and charity. So it's a matter of taking secularism assignment, and you have your charts, so the relationship. You have your Matthew and Sermon on the Mount and choose life assignment. So it'll be probably 5 marks for the first one and 5 marks for the other one. I'm just matter of writing based on the story. I'll go over and review everything with you tomorrow. Okay, so any other questions here? Very good. Okay. Let's go back a bit. Sorry, a lot of questions came through here. Okay. Michelle, is there going to be one scenario or multiple? Is that going to be for today's test? There's only one scenario. On Friday for secularism and gospel life, it's one scenario, one story. Say there may be more than one conscious or guilt choice to argue. How lenient are you in making? Are you in marking? Say it depends on your explanation. Okay, I need your explanation. Please remember that there is a correlation, a parallel between what kind of conscious and what kind of guilt. We talked about this yesterday. So they should be consistent. If they're not consistent, then you'll lose part marks. Okay. A lax conscious will always have too little guilt because they correspond together. Michelle, he said that if you explain your reasoning, it counts. Yes, up to a certain point. It still has to be the right answer, but your explanation will at least give you part answers if your answer is wrong. Okay. Same example. If it's a lax conscience, a person who has a lax conscience will always exhibit too little guilt. You can say excessive guilt, and you'll get 1 out of 2 for it, but not the full marks for it because it's not the correct one. Or the best one with the answer you gave first. So whatever you set out as your answer, you have to have consistency. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, good. Okay, any questions? Okay, just take a 5-minute break. While you're doing that, I'm going to draw something on the board. So 5-minute break for everyone. Maybe we'll start the test early. We'll see. And then give you the other half hour to work on your journal.